Puremix! Hello. Come on into my loft. The Leggy loft. I'm Leggy. I don't know if I introduced myself or not. This is Mavis, my assistant. Official new assistant 2023. Still in training, but she's getting the knack of it. This is the Leggy loft, formerly known as the LEGRoom. Been here for about 6 months, and we're in downtown Los Angeles. And this is where I live, and it's where I work. Studio here. And we're going to do a quick tour. Quick tour of the studio and where I live. It's important to have multiple stations, I believe, where we compartmentalize, work, play, all the different aspects of my life in this one space. So I kind of made areas where I can do different things. So here's my sort of non-music workspace. So I do my emails, do my calls, and just anything that's nothing to do with music. I kind of stay in this space here, and to keep sort of separate from the music world. This is the living space. This is where I do the living. It's nice and open, this space, and I like that. It has I love these windows. They let in the green of simulated nature of downtown. This is Mavis's bed, where she likes to sleep. And then this is kitchen / dining area. Now I like to cook a little bit. So this is, as you can see, there's extensive cookery tools here. I'm pretty excited because I just got a new knife the other day. It's a powering knife, I think it's called that. Anyway, very sharp. Learning how to use that. And so I do a lot of cooking here. This book's quite fun. People who love to eat are always the best people. But don't we all eat? That's the question. That means everybody's wonderful. Flowers, I didn't buy those, but they look nice. And then, the loft, bathroom, bedroom is up there, and live-work situation. Post-COVID, sort of wanted to bring it all together and make it work so I can do music, do my productions and mixing and living all in the same space. Anyway, let's go over to the studio. Sort of perfect space to fit the studio in. So it's been great to sort of get settled here and start working here. It takes a second to settle into a space. And I was in my last studio for almost 9 years. It's kind of intense to have that live and work scenario. So like I said, just separating the spaces is really important for me so that I can kind of have a good balance between living and working. So this is formerly known as the LEGRoom, now known as the Loft studio. The way I've got this set up is everything's ready to go. Okay, so I can jump on anything. It's all patched, it's all ready. If I'm in a writing session and we're being spontaneous in the moment, I'm not having to sort of patch things in or set things up. I have a pretty extensive template as well that I work from for writing and production, where everything's set up. I can just kind of fire off an instrument and start working as quickly as possible. So I'm a big fan of having it all set up. So you can see the mics are here, ready to go on this piano. This piano is pretty cool. It's like old school teacher's piano. It's a Baldwin. And they used to have rows and rows of these in classrooms, and everyone would learn piano together on these upright pianos. And I've done this sort of, rinky-dink felting, which is that I really like the sound of a felted piano. It kind of softens it and makes a cheap piano sound it gives it more character. It feels more romantic or something like that to me. It just softens the tone, because if you, it's a bit honky-tonk like that. So just put this felt on here, and then all of a sudden you just feel a bit more expensive. As you can see, mics on there, they're already ready to go. And then over here, I've got my sort of areas, and this is the production zone here, and then this is the mixing space. And it's always been that way for as long as I can remember. I've had this sort of setup. So I'm kind of over here and I'm producing, I'm programming, I'm editing as well. I like the screen to be closer to me when I'm editing. And then if I'm over here, I'm in kind of mix space, and I have my S3 here that I like to use for mixing, and it's a bit more open. The speakers are further back and the screen's further away, and the separation's important for me to do that. This is my rack. I mean, you know, it's just a rack. What can I tell you? It's got some, but right now I've got literally no gear in here. It's a bit embarrassing, to be honest with Puremix. You come at a very wrong time, because I promise you, I had a lot more gear in here. It would have been more impressive, but it is a good example, and just goes to show you that you don't need a lot of gear, even though I look like I've got a lot of gear. I've only got one preamp at the moment with 4 channels. I've got this UA 4710 and an 1176, and I'm just using that at the moment. Everything else is computer and whatnot. And I used to have so much more outboard gear, and you know, had to sell it, which was a bit of a bummer, but you know, it proves to me that I can make things work with limited equipment, despite the ridiculous amount of computer screens, which is, you know, probably overkill, but I like it. It makes me feel cool. You know, this is the way I've had this set up for 10 years plus. It makes me feel good about being in the studio. The vibes are so important. You know, I've got a lot of lamps. I'm probably at about 25 lamps total in this studio right now. My electricity bill just on lamps alone is through the roof. But again, all joking aside, I think the vibe of your studio is so important. And so I want artists to feel comfortable, excited, and inspired ultimately when they come to the studio. And I do get that feedback a lot when people come here. So that always feels good. Here we are at the vocal booth. I just built this the other day because I had a vocal session, had to kind of put it together. As you can see, because we're in a loft, it's pretty open space in here. So I actually just used this. This is a cloud that was in the ceiling of my own studio, my last studio. So just put this up here and just put a bit of acoustic treatment in, and it's actually a really awesome vibe. The artist that was singing, she loved being here because she can look out the window. It's just an open space. Vocal booths, like those old school booths we used to get in, and you used to go put the artist in the booth, and they're like in this booth, and they were like, okay, do you feel comfortable? Let's do the vocal now. And it's just like, actually, no, I feel terrible. And you're getting, you know, the artist is terrified. It would affect the performance in a negative way, personally. I mean, I was a singer back in the day, and I hated going in those booths. So most of the time I'm cutting vocals in the space, whether it be sort of in a station like this, or a lot of the time I've got an artist sitting on the couch with an SM7 and we're cutting the vocal that way. In fact, with the track that we're talking about today, Amos was always using this SM7. We did the whole record on this, so don't need a lot of fancy gear to make cool stuff, that's for sure. This station here is going to be sort of the fun station. I don't have a lot of synths at the moment either, but what synths I do have, they're here. So yeah, I want to get this all set up. So I've got my little OP1 here. This is kind of fun for kind of mad sounds and inspirational sounds. Again, it's vibe. This is all vibe stuff because you can just kind of grab it and, you know, oh yeah, we've got the sound happening, and it's all pretty straightforward and simple, but fun. So I want to have this all set up at some point. I've just not gotten around to it. This was all set up before in the old studio, I promise. So yeah, OP1, this is awesome. It's a Behringer Mini Moog kind of rip-off, copy, whatever you want to call it. They're like $300, and it's, honestly, it's epic. And my friend's got the real one, and it's, I don't know, for $300 you can't go wrong with that. This was the first synth that I ever got when I came to America. First analog synth, so it's kind of near and dear to my heart. I used to use this all the time for bass and things like that before I kind of moved over to that guy. This is a Yamaha CS10 monophonic synthesizer. and you know, it's kind of gnarly. It doesn't have like the best low end. It's got some low end. It just doesn't have the Mini Moog vibe, but it's a bit more harsh. But I know it very well, and I've used it on basically everything that I've ever done. And then this is just, I bought this for absolutely no reason other than I was bored, and it was like pandemic, and I was like, I want to have like drum machines and stuff like that set up, and I'm going to do all. Do you remember when everybody was doing live streaming in the lockdown, like, or what have you? And I was like, right, I'm going to just run all of these ambient loops, and I'm just going to be running 24/7 on streaming, and going to have drum machines going with, and it all happening, and I never did it. Let's go into the detailed version of the sort of setup that I have and why I have it. Okay, talking about areas, headspace, and sort of what sort of hat I'm wearing for the job at hand. So everything's running off the same computer, but I'm having different areas of my studio to work from. So this would be my sort of production area. And I use Cubase and Pro Tools, and I use them together for different reasons. Cubase is where I do all my programming, my MIDI, the basic sort of, not even the basic, but the majority of the production happens in Cubase because I came up on Cubase back in the Atari days. And the way that it uses MIDI is just, for me, it's just phenomenal. When you play MIDI into your keyboard, like in Pro Tools, I always find that when you play a beat into Pro Tools on your MIDI keyboard, you play it, and then you play it back, and it's literally completely not what you just played. And you're always just quantizing just to get it back in time. That's what I find. I don't know if somebody out there has a way of not doing that, then please let me know. But for me, I'm kind of old school in, especially with drums. I'm either playing on here, or I have this, I have Machine that I use. And so I do all my drums through Machine, and the way that Machine speaks to Cubase is completely unique to, I think, all the other DAWs other than Ableton, in that I can actually like assign all these pads can be assigned to different MIDI channels, and I can in Cubase I can record directly onto the track through the Machine pads, which is not, you can't do that with like Logic or Pro Tools. You have to use it in the Machine app itself. Anyway, it's a little convoluted, but I was trying to find a way to use Machine integrated, and every pad is discrete. So the pad is a separate MIDI channel, but it's also a separate audio bus. So I have total separation of all my MIDI drum programming, which I do pretty much exclusively through Machine. And I've been doing that for 10 years. This is Machine Studio. They don't even make this anymore. The new machines look cool, but again, I just like the feel of playing. I've got a very particular sort of ideas around drums. I'm not a great drummer, but I have great rhythm, and my drums are really important to me. And so I like to play in and sort of build from the old school kind of MPC sort of way of working, especially in drum programming. And so when I'm here, I'm in my kind of producing sort of headspace, and everything's done in Cubase. I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the specifics of this setup, which is I'm using Cubase, I'm using Pro Tools, I'm using Cubase to do my production, my MIDI programming, all that sort of stuff. And then over Dante, over RedNet, Focusrite RedNet, I'm streaming audio digitally across to Pro Tools. You know, it's a pretty complicated system to build, but once it's built, it just sort of works. And so I essentially am using Pro Tools as a summing mixer for all of these channels that are coming out of Cubase into Pro Tools. I have an HDX system in Pro Tools, and I'm also using the auxiliary I/O to get extra I/O into Pro Tools. And so I have about 100, I think I'm doing about 128 channels, so 64 stereo pairs coming into Pro Tools from Cubase. And the reason why I do that is just because I feel like Cubase does a lot of stuff in the production area that I love. I came up on Cubase, I know it very well, and as I was saying before, the MIDI capture is just on another level for me. But Pro Tools is so good with audio, as we know, and particularly for things like doing vocals. If I'm in a high intensity sort of pop vocal production session where I'm with an artist that is operating very fast, there's nowhere that I can keep up with that sort of tempo other than Pro Tools. With doing playlists, duplicate playlists, and just recording and just moving very fast in audio. I'm also just so fast in my kind of editing and whatnot, and comping on the fly, and all the things that is sort of required of a like a high-end vocal session. You know, our job as producers is to be facilitating the artist in the way they want to work. And some artists want to be very, very fast. They want to be in that sort of stream of consciousness. Pro Tools really works. It's not just fast, but it's also very reliable. And it's like a machine. This HDX system is rock solid for me when I'm in audio, and I don't overwhelm it with too much other than just audio processing, and that's it. And that's what it does. So I never do MIDI in Pro Tools ever, unless I'm right at the end of a track and I want to just put a little synth in or something like that, and then I'll probably do it. But even then, I you know, it drives me insane. So this is the way I do it. The RedNet system is sort of, it lives above Pro Tools and Cubase, if you see what I'm saying. So there's all the audio is in the RedNet world, and then it speaks to the individual DAWs through different interfaces, either through the native Focusrite card that is my native I/O, and then they're called RedNet 5s, and they are the sort of bridge between Pro Tools HDX and the Dante system. Complicated, but it isn't, if you see what I'm saying. It's like once it's set up, the technology is working and it's doing its job, but the setup, to reverse engineer it is quite convoluted. But it's just something that I developed through, I really like the way composers work, and I was always fascinated with that sort of, they were composing in Cubase or Logic and sort of really using the DAW to express such beautiful music, and through MIDI, you know, and then processing it and then ending up in Pro Tools for mixing and things like that. So, and you know, I mix in Pro Tools. Pro Tools is a great place to be when I'm mixing and recording audio. So this is the concept behind it is sort of harnessing the power of each individual DAW at its best and sort of combining the two as best you can. The problem with it is like we can't sync them very well other than using MIDI timecode, and it's a little bit clunky around that. So I don't sync the transports. I'm either in Cubase or I'm in Pro Tools, but I tried to find a way to keep them synced and use them both at the same time, but it didn't work, and it's not really necessary. So when I'm here, I'm producing, and then if I do a little spin and I come over here, then we're moving into my mix space. And this is, if I'm sitting in this direction, then I'm mixing. And so, yeah, like I said, everything that I do mix-wise is in Pro Tools, and I mix a lot. You know, it's kind of my bread and butter, and so I love to mix in Pro Tools. My templates in Pro Tools. I've been mixing in Pro Tools for 15, 20 years. I love this this S3 system, and I have the iPad thingamajiggy as well. That's a technical term. This S3 is cool because you can have the layouts. I don't have any in this because it's my production template, but when I get to my mix template, and I'll show you that, layouts are amazing because you can just spill, you know, all of your vocals or all the drums. You know, I have all the VCAs. If I have a bunch of VCAs in a mix template, I can spill that VCA, and now I have everything within the VCA on the console. And so I do all my rides here. This is, you know, where I'll do my vocal rides and things like that. And once I've got a balance in a mix, I use the S3 to sort of bring back dynamics that I've gotten rid of in the mix because I've used so much compression. And then I sort of bring life back into a mix, like a human life as opposed to AI life with automation. It sort of is a way that I do it manually. I don't draw automation in for the most part. I do it on the fader. I'm kind of this straddle of old school and new school, you know. I'm Gen X, and so, you know, we're the last generation to sort of see that kind of old school way of doing things, and then the advent of the internet and technology and the way we make music and all that has changed so much. And I feel really lucky to have been able to sort of come up through the old school, you know, 2-inch making records on tape through into the digital world. So I'm trying to kind of grasp both sorts of philosophies within this space, and I, you know, it works for me. Okay, let's just have a look at the guitars quickly. Guitar was my first instrument that I learned, and this one's pretty special for me, this Takamine. I got this guitar from some of the money from my first record deal when I was 16, and I still got it. I've been in all the bands I've ever been in, I've used this guitar. Every recording that I've ever done that's had acoustic guitar in it, I've used it. It's got a sound to it that I can instantly recognize. It's not like that cool anymore, I would say. Like everyone's using the small body Martins and stuff like that, but it's become a bit of a vintage. It's a 90s Takamine, but I just love it, and it's been with me from England all the way here to America, and I don't know, I just I've got a special sort of affection for this guitar. All right, that's enough of that. Don't look at it anymore. And then this guitar is actually a workhorse again. I used to play live a lot. I was a musical director for bands coming up. It's kind of the bridge from, I was an artist originally back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then I started musical directing for artists live, and then from that I started producing for other artists. So these are all sort of workhorse instruments that I've used for live that I sort of just transplanted into my studio. It's not like the most interesting guitar, but it does the job. And again, used it on the Amos Lee record and all of the other records that I've been working on in the last 10 years at least. Yeah, so pretty standard stuff in terms of instruments. I don't have a lot of stuff these days. That's the studio tour for the most part. I hope you enjoyed that. I always love a good studio tour, so I hope I've done it service. I hope I've done you service. That's it for today. I really appreciate you coming over to the Leggy Loft with me. I hope you've learned something. Now, if you wouldn't mind just getting the hell out of here, and I'll see you on the next one. All right? Take it easy. Go on, get out of here. Get out of here. Go on, get out.